My daughter, against my advice, decided to come out to my wealthy, bigoted parents. Now they have disowned her, and now I am being blamed. This is going to be long, but I need some real help here because I just don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. I'm 45, female, a single parent to 2 children, a 17-year-old male and an 18-year-old female, and the unfortunate daughter of 2 boomers, both in their 70s. My parents are the epitome of the white, wealthy boomer stereotype. They are entitled, racist, sexist, a gab-brained bigots who abuse service workers for sport and think that attending church on Sundays makes them good Christian people. They are also stinking filthy rich due to capitalizing on a series of business ventures in the 1970s and 1980s, plus generational wealth, so they're packing bank accounts with 7 figures. My entire life, my parents have held their money over my head as a tool to get me to do what they wanted. In my teens, I ended up rebelling and going no contact with them. But when I became pregnant by my late husband, he convinced me to give them a second chance and let them back into my life. Since we reconnected, they have never given me a dime for my own costs, even after I lost my husband. They only helped pay off the house my husband and I had bought together, purely to keep the roof over their grandkids' heads, not their daughters. Despite that, they have been good grandparents to my kids, always intending to fund them through college and for them to inherit millions upon their passing. The issue began 4 months ago when my daughter came out to me. I was so proud of her that she felt safe enough to open up to me like this. It made me so happy. Afterward, she broached the topic of extending the news to her grandparents, and that's where my smile faded. Here's an abridged version of what I told her. I want you to be your true self, and I will never deny you that. But your grandparents come from a very different world than we do. If they learn that you're gay, it's not just that they won't understand you. They will actively punish you for it. Every day, the world is becoming more difficult to exist in, and your generation will face challenges mine never did. I want you to be safe and secure as you move forward in life. But with your father no longer here to help support us, I've been unable to provide for you financially the way I wish I could have. If you come out to grandma and grandpa, you won't be their gay granddaughter. To them, you'll just be another FG. They'll cut you off. That means no more expensive gifts, no more car, no more free ride to college, no more private apartment, no inheritance. Nothing. They'll take everything. I made it clear I wasn't asking her to stay in the closet. She can live her life as openly and proudly as she wants. Get a girlfriend, experiment sexually. Just don't advertise it on social media or do it around my parents. They're old, don't get out much, and mostly just spend time going between church, the store, and home, where they sit around reading conspiracies on Facebook. They're also not in good health, and I don't see them lasting more than 7 to 10 years. I told her if she plays her cards right and lays low around them, she'll never have to struggle like many of her friends, and when the time comes, she can choose to bury them in a rainbow coffin if she wishes. At the time, she seemed sad, but she said she understood, and we hugged it out. And that was that. Until it wasn't. My daughter has an online circle of queer friends she speaks with daily through her Discord, and they've been filling her ears with things like how she needs to come out to them, how by not fully embracing her identity, she still has one foot in the closet, that even if her grandparents react negatively, at least she'll be living her authentic self. Since she started bringing it up, I've been drilling into her just what a terrible idea this was, often and repeatedly, and I thought she was listening. Well, it happened. We had my parents over for dinner, and she decided to stand up in the middle of dessert and come out to them. She had this whole speech prepared about how they're from a different time, how the world changes, and how they'll have to learn to change too, but that she knows deep down they'll come to accept her in time. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, only my daughter was in the driver's seat, and the brake was completely out of my reach. After she finished, my parents just gathered their things and walked out. That was a month ago, and since then, they've completely disowned her. Last week, we received news they've written her out of their will, canceled her phone contract, and taken back the car in their name. My daughter was set to inherit millions, and now she'll receive nothing. She's currently preparing for college and now facing the reality of needing to take out loans and get a job. Even though I anticipated this response from them, I'm thoroughly sickened, and I've cut them off once and for all. One of the last messages they sent me was, "We worked hard for our money, and she won't be using it to fund her degenerate lifestyle." This was the little girl whose hand they once held in the park, whose little body they once carried on their shoulders. I feel sick. My daughter is inconsolable, but she's turned her anger against me. She blames me for this entire thing, and every day she alternates between raging, crying, and raging again. Our home has become completely inhospitable. Things have been broken, and my son and I are walking on eggshells. This whole time, I've just been taking it. But last night we had another confrontation, and she screamed at me that this was all my fault, that I just wanted her to live in a closet her entire life, that I've never supported her. And this time I snapped. I yelled back that I had warned her, and she chose not to listen. That she and her pack of stupid online friends, people who've never even met my parents, all thought they knew them better, and she decided to listen to them over the one person in this world who was actually raised by them. That I had advised her on the best investment she would ever make in her life, and she completely blew it. Since then, she's been upstairs crying in her room, and I just don't know what to do. How in the hell am I supposed to navigate this situation? What could I have done to protect her from this? Am I really at fault here? What could I have done differently? Edit. I've received a lot of comments on this post and gotten a lot of good advice, more than I possibly have the energy to reply to, but I'm reading everyone. Thank you to everybody that commented so far. I also wanted to clear a few things up before I go because I just feel drained. I never once told my daughter that she can't be gay in public. She can get 6 girlfriends and walk around with one on a leash for all I care, so long as it's all consensual and she doesn't end up on the local news. I only asked that she keep it off of social media, which her grandparents were a part of. The reason my children's father isn't around is that he's dead. He was struck and killed by a drunk driver 10 years ago. I have never remarried. I have already disowned my parents once and for all. Please stop telling me that I need to stand up to them and defend my daughter. I have already told them exactly what I think of them, and they don't care. My son will not be receiving my daughter's portion of the inheritance. That has apparently already been allocated to go toward outside groups of my parents' choosing. As for what types, you can use your imagination. I do think that what my daughter did was foolish, unwise, and ultimately stupid in the context of the security of her future. An unpleasant part of parenthood that people rarely talk about is that sometimes your children will do and behave in ways that will make you dislike them. By lashing out, abusing her brother and me, and breaking things around the house, right now, I do not like her. But I do love her, and that love is unconditional. I will never do to her what my parents did to me, and I will continue to support her through this. Maybe somehow we can find a resolution. I don't expect I'll update this post, but thanks again to everybody who stopped by with advice and suggestions, comments, and OP's replies. Richard said, "Not your fault. You warned her multiple times. This will probably be the most painful lesson of her life." OP's reply, "I just wish I could do something to fix this. I have even contemplated calling up my parents and telling them that it was all a joke, that she created an outrageous scenario that she was hoping to film and upload to TikTok. It would humiliate me, but I would drag myself through glass for my daughter. At the same time, though, I'm also so angry at her. How many children in this world grow up with this sort of opportunity? I thought I did my best in not allowing my parents' money to cloud her good judgment, but I am beginning to think that I have failed. Maybe if I had allowed life to be a little harder for her, she would have appreciated what was at stake." Mock said, "You also had this opportunity. You could have inherited millions. You were their only child, but you didn't want to live in the narrow confines of their asinine worldview and broke free. I mean, I get seeing your child get disinherited and lose out on literal millions of dollars sucks. But the reality is that you wouldn't bend your life in service of their hypocrisy for money. Sounds like daughter is more like you than not." OP's reply, "You're completely right. She is exactly like me. And I don't want to say that that's a problem, but honestly, look where I ended up. In spite of all my choices, I broke away from my parents. And even with all my smarts and gumption, I couldn't make it on my own. I struggled like hell. I got pregnant by a man I adored, and then he died. And if he hadn't convinced me to try and mend my relationship with them, then my children and I would have ended up on the street. If it weren't for the intervention of my parents, we would have lost the house, and the only reason I'm able to provide for them at all now is because it's all paid off, courtesy of them. Back then, though, the situation was different as well. My parents were still healthy. They had a much greater degree of control over me, and at the time, it seemed like they were going to live forever. I couldn't stomach the idea of living under their thumb for another 30 years. But unlike me, my daughter didn't actually have to live with them. All she had to do was keep her head down, live her life, and wait a few years until they died. I will never regret my children. I will never regret my husband. But even after everything that has happened, sometimes I do wonder whether I should have kept my head down and stuck it out. At the end of the day, I'm still disinherited, so I guess my daughter and I are more alike than I thought. Training Amphibian 56 said, yeah, Opie, hold your, I told you so. She's already lost 2 family members and her golden ticket in one fell swoop. Reminding her that she made the decision with forewarning of the consequences would just be a kick in the teeth. Also, no matter how hurt, betrayed, or angry you feel with her, try not to let her see it. She really needs someone in her corner. She needs you to be her cheerleader and say, I support you. I love you. I don't judge you for the decision you made. I do understand your rationale. I'm sorry this has happened. Try not to add any quips like, I understand why you did it, but it's not what I would have done. She really needs you, Mama. She needs someone to see her and not blame her, because she's already really blaming herself. Opie's reply, I agree. I regret my outburst. I just lost my temper. It's been really hard having her scream at me and destroy things around the house when I was the only one trying to prevent this outcome in the first place. One more cookie said, there is literally nothing you could have done to prevent this outside of literally gagging her and hiding her in an actual closet to stop her. In case anyone thinks I'm being serious, I'm not. Just expressing how ridiculous it is to blame this on Opie. My guess is that you're the last safe person she has, and unfortunately, you're getting the brunt of her trauma because she doesn't have anyone else safe to unleash it on. That doesn't mean it's okay at all. It sounds like she's going to need a bunch of therapy. She's going to have so many mixed emotions, and she needs to learn to grieve the grandparents she thought she had in a way that is safe for everyone. All emotions are okay, and it's healthy to feel them and express them, but it's not okay to use those feelings to hurt other people. Side note, if the car was in her name, how did they take it back? Opie's reply, sorry if I was unclear. The car was in my grandparents' name. She was just insured as a driver, which is how they were able to take possession of it from her. Thank you for your advice, though. Spot on comment. Rare Abbreviations 34 said, there's nothing you could have done differently. You warned her. You told her exactly what would happen if she chose to go this road. She didn't heed your warning and now has to live with the consequences. She has a right to come out to anyone she wants to, and you didn't stop her from doing that. But she doesn't have a right to dictate how others will react. Your parents are old and stuck and not likely to make a change. Not that they can't, just that they likely won't. This isn't your fault. The best thing you can do now is be there for your daughter as you always have been, and maybe suggest some therapy for dealing with the fallout of her coming out to people she shouldn't have. It's a hard lesson to learn at any age, but as my mom used to say, at 18 we all think we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Your daughter just learned she isn't. Savory Things said, your impulse to fix this for her might be what led her down this path in the first place. Our job as parents isn't to fix everything for them. They need to learn there are real-life consequences to the actions that they choose. It doesn't sound like she ever learned the lesson about taking responsibility for her own actions. As the other Redditor above me pointed out, this is the hardest lesson she'll ever learn. But she'll be a better person if she truly internalizes this lesson and understands that this was her choice and the consequences are hers, and now she has to deal with it. Nim Eternal said, this is kind of important because I think some of us who've had to endure rough childhoods tend to go out of our way to make sure our children aren't faced with those same hardships. Not that that's a bad thing, but when a kiddo grows up thinking everything is supposed to be fair and equal because their parents made it seem that way, it can backfire spectacularly. Bigots exist. Racists exist. The top 20% of the U.S. population owns more than 2 to 3 RDS of the country's wealth, while the vast majority of us earn less than $50,000 a year. Life isn't fair. That doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to work to change that, but change is slow. And rich bigots can afford to fill the void where a disowned granddaughter should be with fancy trips and expensive props and 1,000 yes men. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.